When I read the book, I told myself, this is my book and this is my film, and I want to make this film.
I remember the first time Bernd and I met. The main feeling was that Grenouille was a person, a somebody who felt like a nobody.
Der sich wie ein Niemand fühlt.
As somebody who kind of gets it wrong in wanting something very human.
He is intoxicated by the odor of virgins.
You eat him because you love him.
He just doesn't know right from wrong.
It's the scent of purity. He smelt it on a young woman once and then spends the rest of his life trying to recreate it.
I first became aware of the book in the month it first came out.
Im Monat, glaube ich, als das Buch auf den Markt kam. Ich kannte Patrick.
I knew Patrick Süskind well through friends, and none of us even knew he'd written a novel. He hadn't told anyone, and everyone was very surprised when this book came out. He'd worked on it over a period of 5 years on and off, and none of us had suspected a thing. So then I asked him, can I buy the rights? And he gave me a definite no.
This whole struggle, trying to persuade Patrick to sell, actually resulted in a film, Rossini.
Ich will keinen Film aus meinem Buch. Was? Ich will nicht, dass mein Buch verfilmt wird. Das habe ich auch immer gesagt. Was?
Süskind wrote it together with Dietl, and the crazy thing is that the people who made the film are actually telling their own story.
He stayed tough to everyone, but then in the year 2000 I noticed that he was starting to consider selling after all, and then briefly I had the chance to buy the rights.
Und wir machen die Lorelei. Wir machen die Lorelei. Wie ein Mann? Als Brüder im Blute? Bitte, du bist der Regisseur.
There was this sudden energy between us, which was based on empathy and also on a quiet understanding that by discussing the material, we'd ultimately end up wanting the same cinematic structure.
The screenplay was written by Andrew Birkin, Tom and myself. You have to imagine the three of us sitting there at the same desk with Andrew typing.
Tom or I or Bernie would come up with some idea and we'd try it out, and I would be sitting there doing that. But I'm a very slow typist. I just use like 2-3 fingers.
We had quite a few arguments. After all, you can't always agree on everything from the start. Otherwise, there's no creative input.
It was all very precisely researched. After all, Süskind did take 5 years to write it. So we went to Graz, the city of perfume, which plays a big part in the book. That's where the perfumes are made. All the museums and experts are there. The experts are called noses by the French. There are only 300 or so in the whole world. It's a gift that you either have or haven't got, like having an ear for music. Most of the perfume-making processes you see in the film are slightly simplified and altered for film purposes, but the basic process is still just the same as it was back then.
Does it smell?
Very strong.
The constant thought in your mind when you're working on a screenplay called Perfume is, of course, the film also has to have the right main actor. He has to be the right person for the role and have the right aura and really bring the character to life in all its mystery.
The character needs an innocence that is deeply moving, because he can't help being the way he is. And on the other hand, there's that dark, fathomless side that has more to do with obsession.
At that time, Ben was playing Hamlet at the Old Vic. Being Hamlet at age 23 is quite an achievement in itself. One night we watched it, and he was Grenouille. Not Hamlet, Ben, of course. So what kind of reality do you want to describe when a book is based in the 18th century, in a world we can scarcely imagine today? The sources, the paintings and illustrations, almost always idealize it too.
First, we approached it from the visual standpoint. We had storyboards made, not only technical ones, but pictures painted too. We sat down with the two illustrators, worked out what we want, did a few sketches, and about every 2 weeks, Tom would arrive and look at all the latest drawings. Altogether, we completed a total of 100 drawings, having started about 150. There are always changes, sketches, and new illustrations. For the 100 completed illustrations, the two artists needed 5 months. While we were trying to achieve a look for the film, we didn't want just another costume drama.
Back then, each day, the people had to wade ankle-deep through filth. There was always dirt and putrefaction everywhere. No surprise that they only lived to the age of 35 or 40 in those days.
The principal idea of Tom is don't forget that we work on the perfume. It's not a period movie like the other one. So we don't forget the idea of the smell of the perfume. And he said me that he needs the breaking down and the aging of the costume to show to the audience the reality of this period.
Sometimes people wore the same clothes for up to 3 years. Everything was shabby and tattered, and we tried to recreate that. We made everything look threadbare, and we also wanted these conditions to be revealed by the people's faces, people who looked 20 years older than they actually were.
Das war auch eine Modezeit.
With the makeup and the wigs, we wanted to be very authentic.
Sehr authentisch, weil die Perücken, welche
because that kind of thing is often idealized.
Bisschen idealisieren, also die sind alles schön.
And things weren't like that.
So, weil die Leute
Some people had just 1 or 2 wigs, and they wore them as caps.
Als Mütze theoretisch.
The streets were returned to an unimaginably filthy state.
There had to be a type of casual realism that allowed you to focus on something else. It was all very realistic. The main aim wasn't to build all the outdoor scenery and streets. We wanted to go to real places. And the camera work in the film never makes a big deal out of the scenery and the streets. It just takes you along and through them.
The whole thing was seen from the point of view of Grenouille. We kept asking ourselves, how does Grenouille see this scene, and when do we leave it? That was often an important aspect of each scene we did.
The film thrives from its uniqueness. It lives by being so different from other books. The train was already leaving the station, and everyone knew things were starting. We were negotiating with several studios in America, and then luckily for us, Gigi Uri came on board, heard we were doing the film. She'd never invested in a film before, and we were suddenly in the very comfortable situation of not having to accept money from the Americans. So that was the financial side. And the other side is that we had total creative freedom in the making of the film.
I'm a sponsor of the Basel Football Club. There was a game on, and I said, if you want anything from me, you'll have to come to Basel, because I can't go anywhere if there's a game on. So the deal was actually struck before the game, at halftime and after the game. So Bernd Eichinger ended up having to watch the whole game.
Stimmt, wir fangen jetzt an. Nicht, das ist hier. Und er ist schuld.
Und du bist auch schuld.
Und er hat mich überredet.
Du mich auch.
Fish, blood, dirt, filth.
It's weird, but I feel the same way as most people I've talked to over the past few years about the novel. The bit that really stays in their memory is the explicit description of absolute filth, of the stuff that was literally all over the place for people in the 18th century.
There was always the question of how far we should go with the filth. That's something that never usually needs to be considered. And suddenly we had a whole department, and its job was creating nothing but filth.
It's a nightmare. So, I mean, I need to see that, and then you follow the conversation, and then you are the person that plays what everybody in the audience feels. It's like, and you've seen the image, it's a nightmare. Es sind so viele braungebrannte Leute sind wir dabei. Aber mir ist ganz egal, schminkt sie schwachsinnig weiß. Es sieht besser aus, als wenn sie braun ist.
Uli, ja. Auf wen hat er denn jetzt gehört? Irgendeiner hat auch gemacht.
Das konnte man schon riechen, wenn man
you could smell it as you stepped out of your car half a kilometer away. The stench would just hit you, and it was pretty intense. But that's closely tied up with the film, because the film begins with the birth of Grenouille at the fish market.
Mit der Geburt von Grenouille auf dem Fischmarkt.
You all right, man?
Das hat so Spaß gemacht.
I spent a long time wondering why a book on such a strange subject and set in the 18th century was so fascinating for so many people. And I think it's because it's about something that's really relevant for people, the sense of smell, and the importance which that has for your whole life.
Und die substanzielle Bedeutung, die es für unser ganzes Leben hat. Düfte sind identitätsstiftend insofern, als sie nicht nur
Smells create identities in the sense that they send signals that can be reacted to positively or negatively, and also because they are closely bound up with the past.
eng mit unserer Vergangenheit verknüpft sind.
A particular constellation of smells can arouse very specific memories, sometimes of things that happened 30 years ago or more.
30 Jahre zurückliegen.
What are you doing?
This boy can make it through anything.
It was important to me that when extras appeared in the film and were engaged in some profession, that they should, if possible, be familiar with the basics of that profession, with the use of certain tools, or how to treat certain animals, or how to disembowel them.
wie ekelhaft das natürlich auch teilweise war.
It was really disgusting at times, scraping rotten meat off cow skins and then dipping them into urine. The experts had done precise research there.
Really? Come with us. I'm taking you to town for delivery.
People in general are fascinated by human beings that do extreme things and strange things. Grenouille has created to interpret the world. It's his way of making sense of the world. It's the way he understands the world. I think he's a character with a lot of deficits, particularly on a kind of social level. He's a kind of misfit. He's kind of alone in the world. But he has this one extraordinary talent.
Ben
is an exceptional actor, and he was able to breathe real life into an extremely complex character like this. Because Grenouille isn't just the usual weird guy you see in the street sometimes, he has this strange characteristic of not smelling of anything, so he's often ignored and overlooked.
Was dafür sorgt, dass einfach übersehen wird.
In that sense, of course, he's a genius. He can smell things from miles away. And his world is made up exclusively of things that have a specific smell.
Well, the first time I stepped on one of the streets in Barcelona that we transformed into a Paris street, it almost brought tears to my eyes because it was so vivid and so real. It was really impressive.
We looked for ages for that street and found it in Barcelona, and we had to decorate just about everything in the lower section. There weren't any paving stones. We had to add those. It was a very clean street, and we had to make it utterly filthy. Lots of shops had to be decorated too.
It is probably one of the most elaborate sets ever, but it is supposed to be Paris after all.
There were literally hundreds of extras on set, and the people had to be brought in very early because we wanted to shoot the moment the sun came up. We only had that Sunday. The shops were shut, and so we had to start shooting at 6:30 a.m., and we had a permit till noon. So we had half a day to do the entire scene. I was amazed. We had just half a day to do an entire scene. But we did it. Because of our main character, we found ourselves paying greater attention to small details and the special quality of places. And it helped us become more aware of odors, too. That's the amazing thing. At some point during the creative process, what you see becomes determined by your nose. You follow interesting visual details, not only with your eyes, but also with your nose.
For him, the first girl he meets in Paris is the embodiment, if you like, of all his dreams.
We started out by doing research into the period, how people lived at that time. Then I realized that a lot of what you read in books wasn't true. The world Grenouille lived in was something totally different from ours. The character I play is a projection. She is everything he yearns for, everything Grenouille dreams of in a person.
Concentrated into one moment, she overshadows the whole film. She becomes the trauma, the suffering that breaks him. He tries to overcome it, and in the end, he fails nevertheless.
Want to buy some?
Love is an abstract term. The concrete term is smell. He doesn't fall in love with the girl, but with her smell. He can't communicate with the girl, especially since it's her smell, not her, that obsesses him.
Ja, gar nicht sie meint, sondern ihren Geruch.
Sorry.
The way we did it, he doesn't really mean to kill her. It's kind of like an accident. In the book, he does mean to kill her.
That's an important point in the film, one of the cornerstones of the drama. He doesn't want a situation like this to happen again. He doesn't want a smell that he loves and needs so much ever to disappear again. Just like us, we don't want the people we love very much to disappear either. Tom and I discussed who could play Boldini, and we thought Dustin Hoffman. He's a very good actor and a flamboyant personality, but also someone with the necessary dignity.
We started shooting with Dustin in the studio, and for all of us it was extremely important, because Dustin brings such energy to the film. It's hard to describe, full of euphoria and sheer love of acting, and it captivates everyone. His sense of humor really took the weight off my shoulders, and it was really inspiring for the rest of the shoot.
As we say in America, win a few, lose a few. Put on your wig.
Mr. Baldini,
put on your wig.
I've got time to put on my wig.
Yeah. Put on your wig.
You might say it again and again.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get ready for the first take. We need everybody in here.
Baldini, the character that I play, the difficulty that he has is admitting that he can be influenced by his contemporaries, that he actually steals, in a sense, some of the perfume scents in order to create his own. I've been a thief all my life. I think Picasso said it, that art is theft. And I wish I had met Baldini. And I would have said, don't feel so guilty, because we all steal.
Mr. Baldini, put on your wig. Put on your wig.
Yeah, that's it. There you go.
Oh, like that.
That's even too low now. Like this, yeah.
Like that? Is that it?
Well,
no?
Let's just try.
I can get that. You want that?
No, it's too high. Too low.
Here.
Yeah, that's it.
There.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
Set.
Go, go, go! Go.
The first time I saw him all made up in his gear was when he opened this door and the camera was rolling, and I just...
I shall have to think about it.
I think I just kind of was laughing to myself, because I thought, this can't be true, can it? I can't actually, that's Dustin Hoffman.
Everything else fails.
He's not really starry or grand in any way, so it's very quickly it became just like working with anyone else, really. And I learned masses from him. He has a sort of almost a kind of disrespect for his work, a sort of healthy disrespect, in that he's not always trying to get something right. He just sort of gets everything out and brings great joy onto the set. Lots of laughter when Dustin's around, which was a wonderful way to start the film, because I was very tense.
The two of them got on well, but you also felt there was this energy, this contest for the old and the new crown. That was good, and we made that clear to them because it enhanced the way they saw their characters.
So wie gesagt, Formula for one psyche, huh? Speak up. Best those in Paris. Gotcha.
Stop! Stop it! That's enough! Basta!
It's kind of you build up this kind of stop. You want to stop him. You want to stop him, and then boom. And then finally you stop him because the maximum monstrosity he's doing is shaking the puff, as if it were a cheap cocktail.
Basta! You know nothing. Now, how do I physically get him to stop it?
He stops when you get close.
All right.
Yeah, let's go.
That's a really good perfume.
It was Dustin's last shot.
It's an 18th century road movie. That means you never get more than one or two scenes in the same location, and then you're already at the next one. I'm pretty sure that in my career this is the film with the most locations, and in the 18th century too.
The set where we shot the longest was the Enfleurage workshop on a sound stage. Otherwise, we had a different location every single day. And of course, that's very expensive and also a big challenge logistically.
And then someone comes along and puts together the ultra perfume of all time. That's what we're aiming for. Someone freeing himself from the smallness and stupidity of his tiny existence, changing his external appearance in order to be loved in a different way, in the way he feels is right for him. And of course that's a fatal error, and it normally leads to incredible loneliness. And Perfume is about that loneliness. The loneliness of Jean-Baptiste Grenouille, and it's a loneliness familiar to all of us.
If you want to try experiencing loneliness, play Grenouille. I'm very good by myself. I'm happy to be alone, usually. But this has been a very difficult time because he's a character who doesn't, as I said, doesn't have any relationship or any interaction with human beings. He's completely isolated and stuck in his own head. I think after a while that has had an impact, but great for that. I mean, great to go to this extreme place.
And then there was a very difficult character to cast, Laura. In the book, she's described as the most beautiful young woman imaginable.
A role almost impossible to cast, in fact. We wondered just how we were going to do it, find a character whose grace sends everyone into ecstasy. And of course, it's also a question of taste. It's impossible to find a person who appeals to everyone in just the same way.
And one day a casting tape arrived. I think there were 15 girls on it. It went to Tom first, and Tom said, "Take a look, Bernd. There's one girl on here who could be right. But I'm not telling you which one." So I looked at the tape and we ended up choosing the same girl. We did a screen test with her, and that convinced us so much that we said, we can stop looking now. We found her.
She arouses certain yearnings, and with Grenouille, it's not so much sexual. It's more a sense of everything being possible, the world being there to discover, and this is the woman who'll show me all that. She gets that across in a way that I've very rarely seen.
I believe her to be like a butterfly because she's always trying to fly away, and she's always trying to get away from her father, who's always trying to pull her back. And she's wild and free, carefree, vivacious, happy.
Rachel is kind of extraordinary because I can't believe she's 15. It's quite disturbing in a way because she's so mature. She's full of light and full of life. She's really remarkable.
Game's over, everybody.
I like stories about obsessive people. And I think Rishi is almost as obsessive as Grenouille. In a way, you know, they're combatants. So even though he's an unknown force, Rishi focuses all his energies on protecting his daughter.
I think Laura's blissfully unaware of anything. I think she completely has no idea at all. I mean, obviously in the end she does, but other than that, why should she?
Of course, we shot in France, especially the landscapes in the region around Grasse. It's only in the south of France that you get that kind of lavender field. The flora and fauna there are just unmistakable. You can't just say, let's shoot somewhere else.
I did a lot of research into the physics of perfume, how it's made. I went and bought all the essences. For one time, my girlfriend, she was in hospital and people gave her flowers, and I immediately was putting Vaseline over the flowers and fat to extract the perfume and then mix it with alcohol, and it works. Absolutely works. The process called enfleurage.
You take a glass frame and smear pork fat over it. Then you put the flowers on it, and the fat absorbs the scent of the flowers. Then they piled the frames up, and after a while, they could start distilling the fat.
Watch how Grenouille does it. Look how skillfully he handles them. The whole art of enfleurage is to allow the flowers to die slowly, in their sleep, as it were. Handle them as you would a lady. Wouldn't you agree with me?
Madame Arnolfi is basically a very emancipated lady. She's a widow and she has a lover, and is pretty relaxed about all of that.
Did you hear about the murder?
Yes.
Well, let him come near me. I'm ready for him.
He won't.
Wenn jemand wie im Buch 22 junge Mädchen umbringt.
When someone murders 22 young girls, it's something not everyone can identify with. And murder in itself isn't really his thing. He doesn't enjoy it. He just does it to extract the smell of these girls, using various methods, in order to make a perfume.
Daraus ein Parfüm zu machen.
There wasn't a lot of time left for preparation. We'd never worked together before, and he said you only have 2 days shooting. You mustn't wear anything, and you'll die in the end.
I insist that we call upon our bishop to excommunicate him.
And what good would that do?
We hereby declare that this murderer, this demon in our midst, has incurred the sentence of excommunication.
And you can give some reactions to that.
Podéis hacer alguna reacción a esto.
You can already say, is it true?
Podéis también hacer, es verdad, el uno con el otro, es verdad, ha sido cogido, es una salvación.
The girls of Grasse were killed by a single blow to the back of their heads. Their hair was carefully cropped, and not one of them was violated. Rishi uses his intelligence to try to outwit this unknown force who's killing all these young women. Did you open the window?
No.
One day we were sitting together and wondered how everything we were doing should sound. I'm not sure, but I think I said it has to sound like the Berlin Philharmonic. Then it'd be perfect.
I'd read the book when it first came out and was amazed that finally someone had got the rights.
It was a dream come true. He was the absolutely ideal choice, and it worked out.
Of course, we'd met a couple of times beforehand, but there was a great moment where Olaf Manninger, my son Sasha, and I invited Tom to dinner, and he said, well, look, you cook me dinner, I'll show you the film. And so it was his, as he had just finished the first cut.
Something happens with the music that I wasn't aware of. There's a line of energy that I can't read in the notes. It comes from the personality of this orchestra. Rachel, the girl who played Laura, could ride quite well, but wasn't insured for a stunt like that. So our trick was to put a green mask on a stunt woman's face, and Rachel's face was projected digitally onto that green mask later on.
Gut, let's go.
Good afternoon, monsieur.
Good afternoon. Do you have anyone else staying here?
No, monsieur.
They enter through this door, and the innkeeper's wife says, "Our finest room, madame." The she comes after her. And der Schauspieler wird Folgendes tun. Er geht hier, öffnet dieses Fenster und behauptet, an der Côte d'Azur zu sein. Und die Wahrheit ist aber die Costa Brava und dieses Zimmer existiert nicht.
This is a really challenging film for a director, and it was a great pleasure working with Tom and talking about things we'd seen in the rushes, and to decide together in each phase what we could improve. After all, a producer's job is to watch it all and keep his mouth shut at first. What he should do is watch very closely, and then, when the day is over, discuss the images with the director and discuss what has or hasn't been achieved. And that collaboration was perfect with Tom.
Und diese Kombination hat mit Tom perfekt geklappt.
I walked into this square. We were looking for locations. We were almost all there, even Bernd, and I suddenly felt, this is the one. It was a square built for the World Exhibition to display architecture. On the outskirts of Barcelona. The conditions were perfect for us, especially because it was almost like a studio situation. Several of the buildings weren't fully accessible. The great thing was that we could seal the place off. No one really lived there. There were a few offices. We were completely in control of the square. A square with 10,000 people huddled inside it. Well, we didn't have 10,000 extras. So we started calculating, how many are we going to need for the shot we want, to convey a relatively overpowering sense of the crowd, and yet still keep things under control. And the number of extras we decided we needed was roughly 800.
Knapp 800 stehen geblieben.
Okay, everybody now under the arcade.
Then we had weather problems. And of course, it just had to happen during the most elaborate scene of all. All of a sudden, an astonishing amount of rain came down. We all had to stay calm.
And there had to be such physical acting that we couldn't let them do it on the ground with asphalt and sand. So we had to resort to some idiotic mats.
Und wir uns diese idiotischen Matten ausdenken mussten.
Aber es gibt Schlimmeres.
That was very interesting, because it was one of the most unusual casting processes for a scene in which each person was potentially a close-up candidate. So they weren't like extras at all. They were a real group who were really serious about it and kept going all week. And in the end, they didn't want to stop.
Ich hatte die ganze Zeit Angst, okay, wie
How do we organize the chemistry, the communication process?
kriegen wir das hin, dass diese
And how do we
Menschen
get these people to professionally convey what I saw as a kind of choreography?
was ich eher als eine Choreografie verstanden habe.
And choreography was the key term.
Beim Stichwort Choreografie
So I thought perhaps I should contact someone who'd worked on it before, someone from the dance world.
in so einer Art schon gearbeitet hat.
And that's when I thought of the dance theater group La Fura dels Baus.
Ist mir diese Tanztheatergruppe La Fura dels Baus eingefallen. Die halt mehrmals hier in
I'd seen them in Berlin several times. In Spain, they've been near legendary for 20 years.
20 Jahren wirklich extrem aufsehenerregende Arbeiten machen.
You get the people to work during 3 hours, covered with mat, touching them and getting them to the primal animal warm state, to feel the power of being together.
Es hilft natürlich unheimlich, wenn du weißt.
It's a great help when you know you can smear mud all over yourself, because the crazy effect is that you feel you're dressed again.
Kannst du plötzlich auch andere Leute
Then you can suddenly touch other people and slide over them, and the whole thing is like a game, which still preserves a space between their bodies.
Und als wir dann das erste Mal
And it was the first time, also for a few people from the crew, and also for Bernd, that we did this in a rehearsal, also with the costumes. And when we saw how we could do it as a full sequence, that was when we knew it would work.
Und in dem Moment wussten wir werden die Szene hinkriegen.
Then I realized that shooting a film is like a concert. Different cameras gathering different impressions. There were quite a few cameras moving around simultaneously. We had to avoid walking into each other's shots, and we also didn't want the equipment to get in people's way too much. But somehow it worked out really well. It didn't bother anyone.
Reaccionamos cuando pasa la cámara, mucho, reaccionamos mucho, es como mucho motion, más, es muy fuerte, cuando llega la cámara es muy fuerte.
I have the feeling that it was pretty overwhelming, for the people who were in the crowd, as well as for those looking on or working.
And I don't think I've ever experienced anything so beautiful with so many people all together. And I'm really grateful for that.
Obwohl das Parfüm am Ende
Although he creates the perfume in the end, and the effect of the perfume is that everyone who wears it is loved, he realized that his efforts have ultimately failed. So it's basically a tragedy about a person who puts all his genius into trying to attain something and ultimately realizes that he's missed out on what's most important. And of course there's more emphasis on that aspect in the film than there is in the book. And that makes the characters more approachable, that one experiences a kind of realization.
I can certainly say it was one of the most, actually the most exhausting film I've ever made. But its basic mood and the pure experience of it also made it one of the happiest. The whole thing was under a lucky star from the start. We were lucky with the casting for every role, however small. We never felt we had the wrong people, and everything just seemed to magically work out.
We got on very well indeed. We enhanced each other ideally. And so for me, it was one of the best productions, if not the best production I've ever had.
There are certain smells in the set that will always bring back this period of my life for me. Particularly the lady who does the clapper load. And because she's the last person that steps in front of me before each take, I get a waft of her perfume. Whatever she wears, the next time I smell it, I'll be brought back to summer 2005.